Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and what I wanted to do in this video was do a quick look at the A2 bomber of the Hercules line, and then go ahead and dive into a little bit of the bombing mechanics and teach you how to do that. So overall, you'll see that the A2 has the black and red theme, making it look the most aggressive of the bunch. And there you can see that I'm firing off two M6A pilot-controlled laser cannons. Those are size 4s. That being said, they are gimbaled on this ship, so you can equip up to fixed size 5s. However, on a ship of this size, generally gimbaled is going to be a better bet, especially when you're going down to a 4, which still packs a pretty significant punch. What you saw there was basically the contingent of weaponry on this ship. The underside of the ship is where all of the firepower currently lies. So you're very vulnerable from the top, but the idea is that you're supporting a bombing run or a ground transportation type of mission, meaning that you are really designed to have as much firepower on the underside of your ship as possible to support the troops that are beneath you. What you're looking at here is the Chen turret that is also on the M2 but is absent on the C2. These are two M6As, so two size 4 laser cannons on the front of the ship. They are capable of pointing down, backwards, sideways, and you can see that they can even point up a little bit as long as it's not going to hit your ship, so you are smart enough to not do damage to your own vehicle, which is pretty impressive and important. But the laser cannons by default, in the days of past, were a poor weapons choice, but where things stand right now are a very good weapon by default. Now here in the kind of the neck of the ship, you have escape pods, not that unlike other versions of this ship that we've already toured, so we're going to kind of breeze through here. A little bit further back, you do have component access that are hidden behind doors, which is well animated, which I think not only gives you a sense of completion as far as the design, but gives some functionality because it keeps things behind closed doors and maybe limits exposure to the elements. Again, on the inside of the ship, what you have is some storage areas for components. Some of those are not implemented yet. You also have a kind of personal storage inventory here. You used to be able to just click and open this. It wasn't working in Arena Commander. I have not tested it actually out in the Persistent Universe, but now when you actually hit I to get into your inventory system, that's when you can start storing things on board your ship. In your habitation area, you have a handful of lockers for your primary crew. You have more crew on this ship because you have so many turret operators. You have water closets, you've got 8 bunks, you've got, I believe, 4 lockers, you've got a kitchenette in an area to make food and eat and dine as a group. As you kind of go back out to the main deck, you have more component access, and you can see all of these doors are very, very large to be able to access your components. That's because a ship of this size carries typically large components, and they are very large. This, like the other version, still has what is equivalent to the sun at the back of the ship, which in actuality is kind of like an LED screen, but is supposed to simulate a very bright power plant, I believe. Why it's bright and exposed, I don't have a good answer for you. And you do have the kind of exposed power coils on the back like you have in some of the other ships, although that design does vary. Now off to the port side of the ship is where you have more interesting aspects. You have the armory, which is really where you have your weapon storage, which is going to be off to the left, and you can see you have some of the very large weapons racks that are going to be capable of hauling things and loading things like Animus missile launchers and Scourge railguns, as well as sniper rifles and assault rifles. Off to the right, you do have a contingent of lockers for your suits. So this is where you would be able to store heavy armor, light armor, medium armor, EVA suits, whatever it may be. Moving a little bit further back, these are the turret seats. This is where you are going to be getting in and entering remote turrets to be able to operate all of those turrets we talked about on the underside of the ship. 2 of those turrets are actually going to be 2 size 4 weapons. Again, here, I'm sorry, 2 size 5 weapons. So here you're looking at 2 M7As. So what you will have there is significant range and a lot of firepower, although when you're talking about supporting ground operations, the amount of kind of DACA that might be useful there may mean that using a laser cannon is not your best bet. You may prefer some repeaters, even if it is going to be less effective against ships. This one right here is a single size 5. This is an Omni-Sky. It's an Omni-Sky 15. Again, this is a very high weapon or power draw weapon. It does a lot of damage and it's got good bullet velocity. And it packs a real good punch. But again, if you're talking about trying to hit like a cyclone or even, like a tank, a small target on the ground, unless you're remaining stationary, you may want to opt for a faster firing weapon. This ship is not your typical turret operated ship. It's not a retaliator, it's not a hammerhead. You're not really going to be going against fighters, because fighters should have a pretty easy time being able to do damage to the top of the ship where you have basically zero coverage. So unless the pilot is doing a really, really nice job of keeping your ship positioned effectively, I don't see the A2 as being a really good space deterrent to others. I think this is a ship that honestly is probably pretty easy prey to things like a Vanguard or to a series of like Ares or like anything that's really faster than a large ship, which is a lot of ships. I think is going to be very problematic. So even though you are bringing a massive amount of firepower, this is not going to be a space fighter. This is designed to deal a lot of damage to the ground targets, or potentially being used in positioning effectively against very large targets, so like a hammerhead or an Idris, a javelin potentially, even though I don't think it's going to hold up against that. Multiple of these could be pretty nasty. Like on the other versions, you do have a lift that will take you down to the lower deck. The lower deck is where you have the drive-on, drive-off ability for your ground vehicles. That's also where you're going to see your actual bombs and bomb bays. But aside from that, there's not a lot that really changes in here. Each version that you move away from the cargo version, the C2, you see a significant decrease in the cargo carrying ability. Right now on the A2, some of that is because of these areas that you see here with the bombs. These are the Moabs. And those little fins that are tucked to the side really kind of follow the design language that you've seen with SpaceX rockets. Kind of that honeycomb fold-out wing formation. And you will see those later in this video when we actually deploy and the bombs fall out of those little doors, which will open. And then they basically just track to their target. They're not smart bombs, they just fall. Here is an engineering station. It doesn't have a lot of utility at the moment. It's not like you can control the bombs or arm them or do anything. Later on, I think this is where you're going to have a little bit more control over the bombs and the gameplay. But right now, it is solely at the pilot's control. I'm hoping that becomes a more collaborative option later on. And maybe you can do things like set timers or set like arming distance or those types of things to make sure that you do not take damage if somebody flies under your ship and a bomb hits. Maybe that becomes a collision type of situation instead of an actual explosion. You do retain the rear ramp and the front ramp. I have not personally tried to load things up. I do think that you're still able to fit a tank in here. I think it just becomes a much tighter squeeze as you get on. Things like a ballista, you're not limited from width, you're limited on height, and this ship has plenty of height room, so I don't think you're necessarily worried there. So I'll do a little bit more testing, but if you know more about what fits in an A2, please go ahead and comment in the comment section and help answer those. So let's move on to bombing. Now, when you get down to a planetary surface and you're ready to start your bombing run, it's important to understand what you need to do to make this happen. It's not like you just pull the trigger and a bomb drops, because until you enter missile operator mode, you are going to still be firing your primary weapons. So much like other fighters and missile boats, what you need to do is engage missile operator mode, whatever your keybind is for that. You'll see the circle reticle pop up. And when you're bombing with, just gravity bombs, what you will see is a little circle that's kind of in front of your ship on the terrain. If you pitch up, the circle will go further away. If you pitch down, the circle will come closer to you. But that is essentially where your target is going to be. Now, you can't just, hit T and then go towards it and just drop it and you're going to hit your target. You need to have speed and other factors that are going to be included in that. So the first thing that you need to do after you've engaged missile operator mode is pick your target, you get your circle where you want it to be, and then you hold T. The light blue circle will turn green, and that's what will let you know that that bombing area has been selected. From there, you start flying towards your target, and what you will see is almost a crosshair that pops up on your screen. And as you fly towards your target, you will see a dotted reticle that moves towards the center. Now, as you approach the center, you're going to start seeing that turn green. Once that turns green, that means if you release at that point, some portion of your bomb's functionality will make damage on your targeted terrain. If you really want to get a direct impact, though, you need to release the bomb the second it is actually in the dead center of that crosshair. Once you actually do that, you want to pull the trigger. Pulling the trigger of your primary weapon or however you launch your missiles is going to be what drops the bomb. Once that bomb drops, it is going to take a long time to hit the ground. You may feel like it's going to be fast. It is not. It is gravity. You are 1,000 meters in the air. It's got fins that are going to direct it to where it's supposed to go. Long story short, it's going to take way longer to hit the ground than you expect. The bombs do a lot of damage. You do not want to be too low to the ground. I would say your minimum operating elevation is probably about 1,000 meters. Now, it's all dependent on your speed, right? Because if you are going, 500 meters per second, which may be hard to control, if you drop your bomb, you're going to be out of the destructive area, before the destruction can really be a problem. Bombs can be shot down. So the further you release it in the air, and the more hang time it has, and the more time it's just in the air and falling, the easier it is to shoot down. Another consideration is the faster you're going, the more inherited velocity and inertia it's going to have. So, a good example is if you just sit over your target and you pull the trigger, it's just going to fall straight down. Pretty high success that it hits your target, but if there's anybody paying attention, it can be destroyed. If you want a really good opportunity to make your bomb to be, explode on target, it's best to come in low and fast and get kind of that lower arc towards the target. There's kind of that give and take. If you're coming in low and fast, though, the timing on getting your bomb dropping at the right time is a little bit harder. So unless you're surprising your target, it's going to be, your ability to go slow is going to be, dampened to some degree. I have not done a lot of testing on what this will destroy. I will say that an A2 is a very tough target, and if you drop the bomb at a low altitude, it will destroy your A2, even at like 800 meters. So what it will destroy on the ground, I believe, has about 1 kilometer of destructive ability. The shockwave kills a lot very fast. Once you've actually released your bomb, if you want to be able to start, picking new targets, again, you hold T. Once you hold T, it resets and you get the blue circle on the terrain again to pick your new target. Once you do that, you again follow the previous steps and you're in a good place again. So that's basically a quick review of the A2, a quick look at bombing and how you can actually be successful with it. As 3.15 comes along and we have more chances to really use this in exciting manners, I will certainly share that. But if you have questions in the meantime, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day and take care.